Hachette Audio presents Swamp Monsters, Trump vs. DeSantis, the greatest show on Earth, or at least in Florida. Written by Matt Dixon. Read by Greg D. Barnett. Introduction. From swing state to free state. Florida, Florida, Florida. Tim Russert held up the whiteboard with an impish smile, tapping it for effect. It was past 3 a.m. on November 8, 2000, and the host of Meet the Press had run out of words, save for these three. Earlier that night, election night, a long-awaited face-off between the Democratic presidential candidate, Al Gore, and his Republican opponent, George W. Bush. It had seemed clear that Gore was going to be the next president of the United States. The 2000 election cycle had been a bruising one. Everyone expected it to be one of the closest presidential races in the nation's history. But Russert's co-host for the NBC News election coverage that evening, the legendary anchor Tom Brokaw, had announced that Gore had won Florida's 25 electoral votes and in the process likely given himself the inside track to beat Bush, whose brother was, coincidentally, the state's governor. Turns out that Governor Jeb Bush was not his brother's keeper, Brokaw intoned in his trademark deadpan style. But the Gore presidency did not last long. In a moment that would go down as a black eye for political media and a turning point in world affairs, a short time later, NBC, like other national news outlets, had to announce it had spoken too soon. With egg smeared all over their faces, networks and wire services admitted they had called Florida prematurely. "The networks giveth, the networks taketh away," Brokaw said. NBC News is now taking Florida out of Vice President Gore's column and putting it back in the too close to call column. The madness of the moment, as the White House hung in the balance, gave way to one of the most iconic moments of broadcast-era election coverage. As lawsuits were being filed and recounts openly being discussed, a likely sleep-deprived Russert did just one thing when asked how it all might come to an end. On live television, with much of the nation watching, he reached for a whiteboard that had 3 words scribbled on it. The name of the Sunshine State, written 3 times for emphasis. The message was clear. The country's future would come down to Florida, and Florida alone. Ultimately, Russert was right. Bush would go on to win the state by...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?